Hello and welcome to our Friday afternoon live stream. We have very special guests today. Justin and Aaron from MIT. And we'll also be joined by special guest star Rick.
Rick Wilcox, lead developer of Teacher Moments.
So Aaron and Justin, why don't you, today we're going to be working on a app that Thoughtbot has actually worked on previously. It's an open source application. Why don't, if each of you could give a quick introduction of yourself and your role at MIT, and then we'll do an introduction of the application itself.
Great. My name is Justin Reich. I'm a faculty member at MIT. I run a lab called the Teaching Systems Lab, where we aspire to design, implement, and research the future of teacher learning. An unusual thing about the way teachers learn is that teachers often have very few opportunities to practice. So when teachers learn, they listen to people talk about teaching, and they talk with each other about teaching, and they very rarely do teaching. And that's different from other helping professions. If you watch nurses learn, they would be taking vital signs and patient histories all the time. If you watch therapists learn, they would be therapizing each other in practice all the time. But for a variety of reasons, teachers, like, they go to class, they learn stuff about teaching, and then when they practice, they go to a classroom that has 26 kids who have to learn how to write polynomials that day. So they don't really have a practice space. So we're really interested in creating technology applications that give teachers opportunities for rehearsal. One of our main efforts along those lines is an application called Teacher Moments. Teacher Moments is a platform for digital clinical simulations. So we immerse participants, and the participants would be people who are learning to be teachers or trying to become better teachers. So they would be like folks who are in a college of education trying to get a teacher's license, or they might be people who are already working in a school district somewhere who are getting professional development as their career goes on. But there are people who are trying to get better at teachers. We immerse them in little vignettes of classroom life through images, text, and video. And then periodically in those vignettes, they encounter a difficult moment and a microphone icon shows up, and they have to push that microphone icon and say exactly what they would say to that student who has an interesting misconception, to that colleague who said something that maybe was racist or biased, to the paraprofessional who asked a really hard question about a decision that needs to be made. And then all the data that's generated from those scenarios can be shared back with participants, but also can be shared with facilitators, people who might be professors in college of education, to see how a whole class is doing so they can provide overall feedback. It can be shared with researchers, so we study how teachers learn. So that's the Teacher Moments application. And maybe I'll let my colleague Erin Barno introduce herself. And Erin, maybe when you do that, you could talk about sort of one of the Teacher Moments applications that you've been working on, so that people could get a sense of what kinds of things we do.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Justin. So yeah, hi, I'm Erin Barno. I am a fourth-year doctoral candidate at Boston University, but for the past 3 years have been working in some capacity as a research assistant in Justin's lab, with Teaching Systems Lab, using Teacher Moments. So I was able to join on in one capacity supporting mathematics coaches within Boston Public Schools, using Teacher Moments to support their local teachers to think of these moments of decision-making in classrooms. I've also extended that work in my dissertation, working with new mathematics teachers to use Teacher Moments as a conduit to practice and reflect on those small micro moments of decision-making. So to illustrate an example, as Justin was alluding to, imagine if you're in a math classroom, you're talking about a problem, looking at creating a linear equation that has one solution with another linear equation to create a system. You have one student who's given an example that is, you could say, partially right, but is not the best answer, and someone else gives the better answer. So one teacher might just call on that right student and say, yep, they did it, follow what Isabel said. And maybe if it was Isaiah, just ignore him or dismiss him. So at the Teaching Systems Lab, we're really trying to use tools like Teacher Moments as a way to practice and reflect on those moments where maybe there's a rightish and wrongish choice, but you need to notice the way in which power is influenced in those smaller moments. So as a teacher educator, I would want a teacher to notice, hey, like, is there a way that you can authentically link the work that Isaiah did name that it's really mathematically correct, make him feel like he mathematically belongs, and then tie it into Isabel's work in a way that actually feels authentic to the student's work, as opposed to just a checklist of equity or checklist of good work. So I've been really working on the design end of that. And then as a math teacher educator, working with my new teachers to think about mathematics in that really nuanced way, using that practice experience as a way to do that. That's all I got.
Awesome. Thank you both for sharing. So how long has Teacher Moments been around?
Years. There and in different forms. So we're big believers in kind of, iterative design. So there was a version of Teacher Moments, which was just like a pretty slapdash Heroku app. And I can't remember what year. I'll have to go back and look and figure out what year the main installation went up. But it was sort of right. I guess it was leaning into the pandemic. I think we were switching over from the older app to the newer app in 2020. So we probably have 3 or 4 years of the current installation.
Awesome. And it's a Node.js application.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all all open source.
Yeah, so it's open source. It's freely accessible. There's not really a business model behind it. We get grants a lot of times from the federal government, other times from philanthropy, and usually the grants are to study something about teacher learning. It's very difficult to get a grant, which is like, hey, we got a cool tool. Will you give us some money to make it better? We usually have to say, oh, there's a study that we're doing, and we're going to figure out, how teachers respond to practice in this certain kind of way, and then you like squirrel off part of the grant to pay for development. So the tool is freely available. It can also be white labeled. So there's actually one group that works with social workers that has taken the Teacher Moments core application and sort of relabeled it as a tool called Interpret Me, which is the same tool but with a bunch of scenarios that focus on social workers. And it's free for participants. So if you were in a class and your professor assigned, sent you a link. It's a very simple experience for participants. Like, you should be able to just get a link and click in there. You can create an anonymous account, or you can create your own account and play through a scenario. It's slightly more complicated, but still pretty powerful for the people who facilitate these experiences. It's also free, but a thing that was really important to us is that we wanted people to be able to design their own scenarios. So we didn't want to say like, oh, at MIT, we're pretty sure these are the 10 things you should learn to be a teacher. And so we'll make a bank of these practice experiences, although we have made some of them. Sort of more important, we said, we want to make sure that anyone who's a teacher educator, and there are thousands of these institutions across the United States. There are many, many colleges of education. There are many, many school districts that run professional learning and all these kinds of things. And we wanted anybody to be able to go in, create their own scenario, take existing scenarios and modify them to their local contexts. And we're able to make it free for everyone. Because it's free for everyone, we don't hire a full-time developer because we don't have income coming in full-time. So we do these sort of episodic periods of development. And the main build was done by our colleague Rick Wilcox, who actually works full-time at Salesforce, but continues to serve as our volunteer lead developer. And then we had Thoughtbot, who has helped us with some design and some improvement sprints that we've done over the years.
I think Boku, also another Boston based consultancy, has helped as well.
Done some of the with Boaz Sender there, who was a camper of mine when I was a counselor at Camp Milwaukee, and I've known him since he was 10 or something like that.
Awesome. So let's go to the code now. And if anybody, thanks to everybody for watching. If you have questions along the way for anybody here about Teacher Moments, about code, or suggestions for the problems that we're facing, feel free to drop them in the chat, and we'll see them and respond. So, Jimmy, this is your computer now.
Nice. And I don't think I did an introduction. I'm Jimmy Thickpen, a developer at Thoughtbot. Been here for about 3 years, and I'm on a team internally that works on a bunch of early stage products, work with the incubator program that Thoughtbot offers. And yeah, I'm excited to dig around the code. So yeah, like Chad said, we want to take a look at the code base for Teachers Moments.
So one of the things, Jimmy, you hadn't worked on this app
Yes.
before, and one of the things that has been a topic on the stream before was when you're going into new Rails code base, what are some of the things you look at to like get your angle on? We've talked about that, but when you go into a new Node.js application, what are some of the things that you look at for the first time to get a sense of the app?
Yeah, so I mean, going into this, like you said, I wasn't really familiar with the code base, so I cloned the repo, opened it up, and just kind of trying to get the lay of the land. I would take a look at the README. There are a couple, and we'll take a look through what's in here. So, for Node JavaScript applications, you're going to have a package JSON. So I will usually check that out and kind of look at the scripts here. And just kind of figure out what's going on. So it looks like we've got workspaces defined here. Again, for the build scripts, they have some other scripts here for migrations, dev environment and testing, config dev. It looks like they have a jest script for running tests and a script here for linting that runs some JS and package linting, prettier for code formatting. And then also what's interesting is this seems to be a mono repo. I kind of noticed it here, but if you see, we've got like a server folder here and a client folder here. So this seems to be using Yarn workspaces from my poking around, which is kind of Yarn's thing. It's been a while since I've used this on a project, but it gives you some useful utilities for like working in a mono repo type project where you might have a client and a server, like in this situation. So in that situation, we've got another package JSON here for the server. So these are going to be like the server specific scripts, migrations, and a lot of those scripts in the outer package JSON will kind of reference these scripts inside of the server package JSON. And then if you also take a look at the client folder, we've got another package JSON in there for the client. We've got a build script. It looks like they're using Storybook for probably testing components. And some other things like linting, prettier, like we saw before. So that tells me this is a mono repo project. There's probably a script in this outermost package JSON to do most things and to start it up. Yeah, it looks like it's probably hosted on Heroku, which we figured out. Looks like they have some secrets and envs in this config folder. Yeah, so that's kind of the lay of the land. It looks like the Node app. It looks like the client.
And then a React client.
I was about to say, yeah, it's React, and the version of React looks like 16.9. I think React's on like version 18 now, so that's not that old. I don't think this was using Create React app, which a lot of apps were built with, but probably maybe not when this was built. It seems to be like a hand-rolled React client mostly, using Webpack when they build. So that's pretty cool. And then the server is a Node server using Postgres, SQL. Let's see here. I'm just looking through some of these dependencies. It looks like they're using the AWS SDK for some things. .env, which is great for exposing environment variables. Yeah, there's Postgres right there. And Redis for some other stuff. Cool. Yeah.
Cool. So we had gotten some ideas about pain points in the app now, and I assume, Aaron, that comes from users saying and usage saying, oh, this is a problem for us.
Yes, yeah, correct. So this is both from my own experience and from conversations with other folks who have both designed teacher moments and then have used teacher moments as part of a cohort to send to their class and then look at the data. So everything that's a part of that experience for some of the pain points we found.
Yeah, so we looked over that list, and I think a few things jumped out at Jimmy that we can dig into. So, Jimmy, what was the first one?
Yeah, so I'm going to pull up the app. I've got it right here. So this is the production instance of Teacher Moments. I have it locally as well, but one of those pain points was kind of just slow loading on the initial load of the app. So let's see if I want to make sure I get this, replicate this. If we do a hard refresh, we should see. Takes a little bit.
Ah!
Not a great experience for someone that hasn't used it.
And it wasn't the case a year or two ago.
I have to be honest. The first time I came to the site and I just saw a blank white page, I was like, oh, I guess the server's down.
Yeah, that's alarming a little bit, but we can dig into the code. Well, the first thing I would do to kind of diagnose this is check out the network requests. So we can see that what is happening. You know, it's interesting actually. Maybe we could do a recording of what's happening when this is loading up and see what's taking a long time. This should give us some information at least. So I pulled up the performance tab in the Chrome developer tools, and I recorded the site loading. And now if we stop this, we should see, okay, this is pretty obvious. So it looks like something is taking a very long time to load, and then a bunch of other stuff loads. So that thing that's taking a long time looks to be the bundle. And you know what?
Does it say how big it is? I'm just wondering whether it's a size.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's 36 megabytes.
Okay, well, that's pretty obvious. So every time we load up the page, you've got to load 36 megabytes before it seems to be blocking the render too until that bundle's finished loading. Interesting. Yeah, and then everything else kind of comes in pretty quick. So
now I actually like when we see a problem like this, because it's like, oh, okay, it is all this one thing. If we can if we can fix that problem, then we're gonna have a big win.
Yeah.
So that's exciting.
Yeah, if I see that, my brain is thinking about how are they building this? How's the bundle created? So maybe let's take a look at the code.
So we did see Webpack being used.
Yeah, we saw Webpack and the dev dependencies for the client. And if we look up here, okay, so we see we're just running Webpack in production mode here to build the app. And that's going to use, we should have some Webpack config. Yep, right here. Let's see if we can gather anything from this. Probably not from just looking over it, but I know there are things you can configure with Webpack to maybe help with like code splitting, or to minify the bundle in a more efficient way.
Are you able to replicate this locally?
Oh yeah, let's take a look. So here's my local instance with the same production data. And let's just do a hard refresh on that one.
You are on a different page, right?
This is, oh, you're right. Thank you. Thank you.
Let's go apples to apples here.
Apples to apples. So that's pretty fast. And that makes sense because we're not going to be serving that built bundle locally. If we take a look at performance again, maybe just for curiosity's sake.
And it also, even if it was sending you 36 megabytes, it's not going to take that long because it's locally. So okay. So we are seeing the same, or actually worse, which we would expect to size locally. So we'll know when we fixed it locally. If we
why will the local bundle be worse? Or bigger in size?
It's not built with production settings, so it's going to not be necessarily like compressed in the same way.
Like less minification.
We are now joined by Rick.
Rick Wilcox.
Hello, Rick.
Hi, Rick.
We gotta
You're
unmute you.
muted. Cool. We are just looking at the one of the first problems, the long initial page load, and discovered that on production it's about 36 megabytes of a bundle JS being downloaded, and locally 45. So we're digging into that.
Yeah. So at this point, I would probably go to Google and look at some efficient ways to try and reduce the bundle size with Webpack config.
One thing I was wondering, Jimmy, is I wonder whether like there's like a big asset or something being put, like does the bundle include style sheets too? It can, right?
It can, yeah. It probably includes all the app code, the Node modules, and like you were thinking, the styles. So we've got it right here. And I mean, it's one big, well, here's the here's the CSS right here separately from the bundle.
Okay.
Yeah. So it looks like we've got some images. Okay. A root HTML page, bundle, and the styles. So, you know, there is a Webpack, I think there's a Webpack script for like analyzing the bundle. So, because if we did something like that, we could see what is big in the bundle, or we might get like a better idea.
Yeah.
So let me see. I'm just on another screen over here. Yeah, build stats. So maybe if we Google like Webpack build stats command. Let's see here. Okay. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I see something different on my screen, but similar to this. Kind of like Webpack, you tell it to build a JSON, and then you can build it in a certain mode, and it builds a stats.json file. And I think there are also some utilities online where you can like upload that file, and then it will give you like a cool visualization of what's going on. So let's go in the code perhaps. And here's the Webpack script. So what I see on my other screen.
Well, oh, you're changing the production one, but there's a separate dev one.
Thank you.
And actually, I see dev analyze.
Ooh, okay, yep. Interesting. You want to run that script and see what happens?
Sure, yeah.
Let's see. And that's in the client. So I would do yarn dev analyze. Oh, well, that might just be because the app is running right here. Let's see. Okay. So that would have probably just started the client. We're not going to have the server. So let's see if I can just start the server with dev. Okay, connection refused. I think that makes sense because the server wasn't up. You want to Google that this command maybe, Chad, the analyze true? I wonder what that.
Yeah, I'll do that. And I'm just I'm chuckling to myself because it did print out sizes and it just says bundle.js 43 megabytes. I was hoping we'd see a little bit more information there, but I think the analyze outputs something. Let me check what it is.
Yeah, I wonder if it, where was I? Yeah, I was just looking at the sizes of everything else, but nothing else seems notable except, Yeah, no other megabytes, just kilobytes and bytes. Webpack, analyze true.
Does the package JSON have webpack-bundle-analyzer in it?
Analyzer.
Yeah,
It does.
Okay, so
yeah.
that's what it's using.
Webpack bundle analyzer.
Mm-hmm.
So I can actually tell you where I think much of the surprise size comes from. It's the Cotex plugin, Code Mirror plugin, and the languages that are used for the rich text editor. Cotex is the entire Cotex parser, builder, renderer thing, and of course Code Mirror is large, and all of Code Mirror's assets as well get bundled in there.
Got it. Okay. I wonder how many languages are in there in total. I think I saw something. There was like a pretty hefty looking WYSIWYG editor and like the scenario creation piece.
Correct.
That's probably a pretty big one too.
Yes.
Well, this is cool.
So it looks like Jimmy, the command might have, the documentation I'm looking at is a little bit different than analyze true. It is using the -- profile option.
What is that option?
It's here, usage as a CLI utility.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
And then it outputs the stats JSON, just like you said.
Oh, sweet. Yep.
And then you can feed it to Webpack Bundle Analyzer.
Profile JSON, stats JSON, bundle analyzer. Okay, nice. So maybe we can try something like this script here. Profile. Let's go back. This would be, I'm just gonna do like dev stats, and we'll try. Profile JSON, it'll build a stats JSON. You know, I wonder if we need to do like the mode equals production as well. What do you think?
Yeah, sure. I don't think there's any harm in that.
What am I doing? Going back to the app real fast, and let's try our script, which is yarn dev stats.
Oh, you put the mode in front of the, after the bracket. It needs to be in front.
Thank you. Let's see. We'll just move this right here. And then
you need to give the config, do you think?
Profile. Oh. Yeah, I probably won't just pick that up. Are they passing it here?
No.
Oh.
It might, because it's a standard name, it might just work.
Yeah. Let's see what it does. It did build something that first run. Let's try one more time. I've got source tree here to see my diffs visually. Okay. So once we have this built, there's that CI tool you were saying.
Yeah, it's here.
Cool. I wonder if I'll just be able to run that, or if I need to install. This is like a global module.
You can probably just do
package, so you should be able to run it.
npx.
Oh, that's right. Yep.
Yep.
Well, let's try that after this builds. Cool. Bundle analyzer and Or stats.
Yeah, it's there. I think it was just in the directory.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
I dug too deep. Yep, thank you. Error parsing, bundle.js, no such file. Huh. I want to show original module size from stats file. Bundle analyzer. Interesting.
It looks like it's looking in just the client directory for bundle.js, but that's not where the built assets are actually going to be.
Mm-hmm. The built assets are, well, there aren't any right now. I haven't run the build command. We should build the app probably first. Let's try yarn build. While that's running, I'm gonna peek at this again. Oh, something opened.
It did work.
Well, that's fun. Okay, interesting. Can I click on things? I can. That's intense.
It really is.
Help me, go back. Oh gosh, now it's dead. All right, let's go back. Okay, we're still building for production. I was going to go back to the package documentation to see if I missed a flag for something.
I think the build finished.
Cool. Okay, cool. Oh, look, Webpack gave us warnings. Oh, look, asset size limit. Recommended 244 kilobytes, and we're a little bit over that. Okay. Performance recommendations. It's like you can use import or required out ensure to lazy load. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, yeah, so they reference some code splitting docs on the Webpack website. And if we look at this, this is all the built assets. I like how it just says big.
Yeah. Can we tell what the big thing is in there?
Well, where's bundle.js? Here's bundle, entry point. I don't see any megabytes. There's 2 megabytes. But that's not super helpful.
Yeah.
Maybe let's run our other command again, which was the build analyzer. Or bundle analyzer.
So it should be open in your browser now.
Yeah. All right. Let's just look at this. Bundle.js. So I'm assuming everything under here is part of bundle.js. Looks like we've got our node modules, which is all of this stuff. And then.
So all the fonts are bundled in there.
Mm-hmm.
And then which also includes Fomantic UI, CSS.
Yep. Oh yeah. Fomantic and semantic. Got more font stuff. Code mirror, if you were mentioning. And then Moment, some other common React packages, Lodash. So the big ones, the semantic CSS is kind of large, seeming.
Yeah, but can you mouse over bundle.js?
Yeah.
See, it says it's 14.62 megabytes.
That is not 30 megabytes.
Right. And that's why I was saying none of these sizes I was thinking none of these sizes are big enough to have added up.
To the 34 megabytes.
Right.
Or 45. Yeah, so it's almost like maybe it built it differently. what we're analyzing, or it's just not picking up something.
Yeah, either it's not picking up something or everything's proportionally smaller.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Well then, I would probably, we could try one of the other like visualizers for looking at the Webpack stats.
Mm-hmm. Another thing I was just thinking, did we ever provide the Webpack config file?
Oh yeah, did you see a flag to throw that in there?
I think it would just be
Webpack.
I meant when you built it, but it didn't seem to have any problem building.
Yeah, it did
Oh,
say.
and you didn't build it manually. You used the package command to build it, right?
Yeah. It does say error parsing bundle asset. No such file. No bundles were parsed. So I'm not sure what that means though.
Mm-hmm.
Bundle asset. Yeah. Exclude assets. Directory containing all generated bundles. Path to Webpack stats JSON file. Interesting. Yeah, I'm not sure what that error is from.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of curious to try one of the visualizers to see if it's different than this. Let me see. What was that script I wrote again? Right here, the dev stats. So Webpack, node production, profile, stats.json. One of the, what was it called? One of the visualizers was, well, let's Google like Webpack stats. Visual.
Yeah.
I've used one. Were you going to say something, Chad?
I was. If you go to the back to the package, Jason.
Yeah.
We could try supplying the config Webpack to that Webpack command.
Oh, did you see a way to throw that in there? Just like,
no, now that I say that, because we're not doing it for the build. It's not supplied for build, so we shouldn't need to do it.
That was my assumption, yeah. But I do see it here for the
right.
dev server, but maybe that's just different for dev versus build. I mean, we can always just copy this in here and see if it changes anything.
So we should, yep.
Let's run that again and see if it's any different. I don't know. My assumption is it won't be, but let's see. Once we get bored of this, we can look at something else. But I think we've already got a pretty like obvious takeaway that the bundle is pretty big, and like further exploring code splitting or chunking up the bundle may have like a performance improvement. Maybe there's a way to better minify the bundle too with certain configs. And oh look, we didn't get our error.
The error didn't show up until we did the CLI for the Webpack analyzer.
Can I have some questions that might be naive? One would be, is there a way to use cookies or other things like that to put the stuff on people's computers and leave it there? so they don't have to reload it each time. And it sounds like, we were loading a file which is dashboard, which is kind of your first entry into the site where you might do a couple of different things. You might look for existing scenarios. You might see which cohorts have been built up. You might go to the sort of like help features and support features and things like that. And it sounds like some of the things that we're loading initially are things like the WYSIWYG editor for designing scenarios, which which you wouldn't really need until you get into the part where you're like editing a scenario. And so are there ways to download things on people's machines more right when they need them? I mean, though I certainly understand the virtue of just like giving people all the stuff they'll need to use the app right when they show up on the app.
Yeah, I know with that, like, makes me think of Next.js, and I know that there is some like magic in the way they serve pages and which modules are needed with kind of a hand-rolled React app. It's not as obvious. I know there are code splitting is like, I think it lets you concurrently load the bundle. So it wouldn't just be like one long network request. It might be like 4 concurrent requests, but that might not help.
It will load the stuff you need. Like, you should be able to get the page to load and then continue to do stuff in the background
As it like progressively loads in. Yeah, so it wouldn't be as like render blocking as it is now. So it would seem to be faster. Yeah, for the cookies part, yeah, nothing really comes to mind for kind of like caching.
Caching stuff on people's browsers.
Yeah.
So that.
Yeah, I think once it's loaded the first time, it's probably pretty fast. It's just that first load that's going to throw people off.
Some
Let's see.
maybe added context might be helpful. The sort of like that time spent like just there that you witnessed, that doesn't actually occur, or really it's less pronounced when like prior to so we're looking at dashboard, and dashboard basically the more the cohorts themselves that you are associated with grow because of the amount of data necessary to represent the information that is required on a given screen at a time. Like, the more those grow, the longer this takes. So if you were to start, like, for example, like an empty install, most of these views load almost instantly. Because after that first time a lot of these assets are requested, browser is gonna do the browser caching thing. But as the data grows, that is certainly becomes an issue because of the amount of data it's requesting.
You're talking about if Jimmy refreshes the page and we look at these boxes here, it takes a second for those units to load.
I noticed that too. Yeah.
So I'm talking about things like cohorts specifically. Remember that is this right here. Not right.
Yeah. Takes a little bit.
And my thought was I couldn't remember whether or not there was some kind of like hold off rendering screen until data is ready to go. I mean, because honestly, it's been like 2 years or more since I actively wrote code on this, and I can't remember if, as that data grows, if that affected the initial renders. But when you refreshed it just then, there was no lag. So that tells me that my sort of quote, what if recollection is probably not accurate.
Yeah, it seems like the bundle is being cached like after someone gets to the site one time in their browser.
Right.
Chrome has it in the cache.
And of course that bundle doesn't change, right? Except for when there's a new release of the app. And
Yeah.
then we just rely on Heroku to do the right thing as far as clearing that and sending out, new bundle.
Mhm.
Right. But you can see even here, there's a current request that's not finished yet. See, it just finished to load
Yep.
those cohorts on the screen. So that it's the 2, Jimmy.
Oh, I was about to say, is the font?
So that took 30 seconds to respond with that
Wow.
cohort data.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's the other place where this manifests. What really needs to be done, and this has always been like a sticky note to do for me, that I just ran out of time, 2 years ago or whenever it was to do, which is to really optimize the data, optimize what is necessary on screen, right, and then optimize what is produced by the REST calls to the server. Like, what is the API actually spitting back out? Right now, it's it's returning the entire cohort and all of the associated data. So every time a new student joins a cohort and runs a scenario, the entire scenario, like all of the data points that are tracked from the scenario that they ran are then going to be loaded anytime a cohort gets loaded, right? Like that is 100% like a place where this app needs desperate attention.
Right. And like on this page, it's only showing the name, and yet it's getting all of the data.
Yeah. So you could
Right.
definitely build some new queries, maybe, or optimize the current query.
Exactly. And really that's just a function of, okay, we have the get cohorts call from the API. Cool, get go cohorts. All right, that feature has been, it's basically, all right, table optimization. We've got to knock out the work items, right? And unfortunately, sometimes you run out of time. But that is absolutely a place that is long needed attention. And like you said, optimize the existing queries, or write new, like more specified endpoints, like more narrow requests. You could something that's always occurred to me is that, like, if you had sort of like a cohort's meta data, right? Like, just give me the metadata for each cohort, and you can build like a dashboard page or the cohorts page from just like a smaller view of the data. And then when you go into the cohort, then you get the rest of the data.
Totally.
Want to take a look at that endpoint, Jimmy? The scenario status endpoint on the server.
Scenario status. Yeah, let's take a look. Yeah, it's pretty common to see things, or like maybe this query was used for the cohorts page and then it was just used here and not really optimized for that little UI box that shows the name,
Yes.
So
yeah,
we're
it's
looking
a super common thing.
Endpoint, that's API scenario status too. Let's see here. I'm not super familiar with this, so let's see. Service. We have scenarios and endpoints. Maybe.
Get scenarios, I think.
Get scenarios. Where are they? I'm looking for somewhere where like the routes are. Okay. This is kind of what I was looking for.
Get a function called get scenarios by status.
Yes. And that would be back here. Get scenarios by status.
There you go.
Cool. All right. Yep. So it's getting the status, passing that in as a argument to db.getScenarios by status. We take a look at this query. You can just see that we're getting, well, it's always a red flag maybe to see a select all. We're getting all this from scenario where the status equals that status, and we're ordering them. Okay. And then we're pushing into the scenarios array, each scenario. Interesting.
That's interesting that it's and maybe Rick, you can, if this is intentional, it is doing a select star on scenarios, and then it's calling get scenario with only the ID being used here.
So scenario records have other associated data that gets pulled from other tables. I would say that this is like an unfortunate wart of naming, right? Like where you see where like await getting the scenario, that should be like get fully qualified complete data for scenario, something like that.
But I mean, like right here in this other one, it's just selecting the ID from the scenario, and here it's doing star.
Yes, yeah. This get scenarios slice.
And all we ever use is the ID. So we should be able to. It's not going to be a huge thing, but
yeah, see,
loading data that doesn't need to be loaded.
If you were just getting ID, it should be a lot faster to at least initially get these results. The slowdown could be this for loop that's going through and fetching every scenario by ID. And you'd also have to, before just changing this and saying it's fixed, you might want to see what else is using this. You might be breaking another page that, well.
Well, the data is not being used other than the ID.
That get scenarios by status, that endpoint serves a substantial number of aspects of the app where more than just like a name and more than just the title and like author or whatever are used.
Well, maybe let's
go to the get scenario function.
Let's see. I did change this to ID if you want to take a poke at the console and load it again and see if that made a difference.
Sure.
Get scenario is doing, okay, so it's past that ID, getting everything from scenario by ID. And then, so that's probably.
And that's okay. That's what we would expect because that's the point of this method.
Yeah. If we need all the fields, it's going to give us all the fields. Then what else is this doing? It looks like it's just parsing through. Oh, yep.
Yeah, it's like Rick said, it's getting all the associated objects.
Yep. Interesting.
Right, okay. and then you see at the end what it does is it takes the entirety, right? Look at the return statement. It takes the entirety, spreads that object, and then adds all of the additional data as the new properties on that scenario object. It's like I said, that should probably be called get fully qualified, or like get like fully formed scenario or something like that.
One way that I've seen, there's a few. You were saying this, Rick. There's a few different strategies for dealing with this problem.
Yeah.
One way, which based on the code, might be there's basically two ways that are relatively straightforward. The first one was what you said, which is introduce a thing that's just like get meta scenario or get scenario meta information, and it's returning just that, the names and the IDs basically, or whatever the top level information you need is. The other is to change the get scenarios endpoint to take basically parameters that say what you want included or what you want excluded. And
agreed.
Then you can, conditionally do some of this stuff.
Yeah. Would it be, I see all of these requests and I'm thinking like you could probably also create a different query that does a lot of these operations. more quickly than trying to fetch every dependent thing to set the request.
Yeah, a lot of those also massage the data before, so
Okay.
whatever's, they do operations on the data as well.
Gotcha. Yeah. So converting those strictly to queries might be a massive query in the end if you were trying to match.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And the general thinking was each of these component functions are also used themselves for other endpoints, right? So these don't just exist for the purpose of like serving this particular function for this particular endpoint. Those are used. I believe almost every single one of those is used either for its own endpoint for the very information you're seeing there, or as part of composing the response data for some other endpoint.
So just for the purposes of illustrating the difference, if we just delete this.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. And then go back to that dashboard page. It should load this much faster.
We were on production, so let's go to my local right here. To make sure it rebuilt real quick on my. That only took 10 seconds though, but let's see. I want to make sure that my editor is saving on change before we assume. So let me just add back something and save. Okay. Yep. Cool.
It refreshes the client. I don't think it refreshes the server.
Oh, you're right.
Like hot refresh is not going to happen on the server.
Yep.
So you need to kill the app on your left side there and restart it.
Yes. You'll
get the live stuff in the on the client though. Client side changes.
Yeah. Usually I have my client on the left for all my projects, so it's like I got them switch.
Listen, I totally understand screen geographics placement. I'm right there with you.
When did I start the server? Just dev. Yeah, so yarn dev. Cool. All right, now we should be back up with that stuff commented out. I think the client has to, there we go. Okay, just built. Let's refresh. Let's see what our 2 requests is doing. So
can you expand that preview? I'm curious whether it's actually including all the.
Yeah. I think this was what we saw earlier.
Hold on a second.
It's less. It doesn't include.
Wait. Can we sorry, I wanted to just mention that you're not going to actually see a change in the response time because you're still calling that get scenario and it's still got to append all those awaits.
You're right. We're just removing the
date
from the response.
Yep.
Right. But if you wanted to see if you wanted to see a speed up, no. Hold on a second. Don't do that. Undo all that. Go into the endpoint function, and don't do the await get scenario. That will bypass all of those. Yeah, get scenarios by status. DB gets it. Yeah, there we go. Go in there.
Okay.
Where we were. Yep. And now don't do line 312. See what I'm saying? This way you're. Well, it's going to have all of the.
No.
Did you change?
That would just remove. If we remove this, then our scenarios would just remain an empty array, right? That's returned.
Right. Well, what do results rows or whatever? is the return.
Mhm.
But you're going to need to restore the star if you wanted to see the real
Okay.
difference between.
Oh,
It is never doing anything with this. Restoring the star doesn't actually do anything. Is never doing anything with the contents of results, except fetching the ID
Well, I know.
from it.
No, I know. What I'm saying is return the rows at the end instead, right? Return the results of that query. I'm saying to bypass all of the additional lift. I don't know if I'm explaining like if you wanted to see what it would be like to just simply not have all of those extra calls, right?
Mhm.
We could just do the scenario record rows directly.
Would that
You see
still
what I'm
be
saying?
the
Because
format for the client?
yeah, because if you saw in that get scenario, all it was doing was spreading the contents of that scenario, right?
That's true. What do you
Just
think?
spreading the contents of that original object.
You'd have to just return results. So you're saying just return results here.
Results.rows.
And then no longer push. You just don't want to loop through it all. Just
Yeah. There you go. Yep. There you go.
Let's try that and see what happens. And I'll restart the server real quick.
Yeah, so that was
See?
a lot.
That was a lot faster, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Interesting.
Right. So there you go. That's.
So what are we missing?
Well, so that's the thing. For this view, you're not missing anything, right?
Yep.
But that endpoint gets reused. Ultimately, what I would like, if I were tasked with solving this, I would say, okay, well, for the purpose of like the dashboard view, we just need to, like a limited view of the data. So we'll create just like maybe we don't call it meta. Maybe that's just too vague. Maybe you just call it like the scenarios dashboard, like the dashboard data view, which is like is basically the metadata for a scenario or the cohort.
Jimmy, can you
or
do me a favor and go back to your browser and go to the cohort screen now?
Yeah, let's see.
So this page also loads a lot faster because the fact that it's missing the associated things is, also okay on this screen.
Yeah, that's a big difference as well. I'm like, where are the breakages?
Right. I'm not sure that they'd show up until you go to like drill further down into something.
Yes, exactly. Like if you go into a cohort, I'm just taking a peek real quick at all the places where, so.
Yeah. See there, it's trying
to. Yeah. Any place that your own recently visited cohorts or let's see, data tables that are built from cohort history, the scenario selector for when I'm I'm trying to remember. Justin, what is the name of the person who runs a cohort? What do we call them again?
Oftentimes a facilitator.
Facilitator. That is right. The facilitator. Yes. When I'm a facilitator who is creating a cohort and I'm selecting the scenarios, that's gonna that view also relies on the scenarios by status. When I'm looking, I already said data tables. Yep. And let's see here. The multi participant scenario lobbies rely on get scenarios by status as well. In the scenarios by status, they have the additional information necessary real quick. So I just want to double check something here.
So this would just involve like creating.
I'm just so.
Fixing this.
Anyway, what I'll say is that while there are places that rely on this, I'm quite certain that the hunch that I think we all share, that not all places need all of that information, and that the duty of this endpoint currently can be split into two, right? Where you have a less often used version that gets the that fully qualified scenario only when necessary, versus just get me the scenario with the most basic information necessary.
It might even be, and I've seen cases where you actually don't need a collection endpoint at all that returns the full object. It's only ever, and it will be better performance-wise to do multiple requests to get the full object of the one that you need, instead of trying to have an endpoint that does them all. It depends on what the UI looks like.
Right. I'm trying to also now remember something with regard to how, so the client-side data stores for a scenario. So for example,
like Redux,
when you go into when you go into the editor after having loaded this, I'm trying to remember it. It may look in the store and it's like, yeah, great. I have this, except that it doesn't. Like if it doesn't have all of this data, I'm wondering if I'm trying to, without actually looking at the code, which I could do. Do you know what I'm saying? So like they're shared. The scenarios are shared. The Redux data stores are shared across all aspects. So a scenario is a scenario is a scenario. So if cohorts needs a scenario, it's looking at the same Redux data store as the scenario editor, obviously.
Okay.
I think that just something to keep in mind, that if you wanted to have the multiple requests make the scenario whole, as you just described a minute ago, which I definitely agree with you with regard to that being a sound approach here. You would just want to make sure that like whenever the editor is involved, it then does make a request for the fully qualified scenario when it loads it in for editing.
Got it.
Yeah.
I was also just looking at this that we had commented out with all of the awaits and thinking a quicker win might be able to just use promise all instead of having all of these awaits, because what's going to happen is the awaits, every subsequent await's going to wait. Oh, I can't uncomment this.
That was already you're in a different method. That was already commented out in the code.
Oh, was it? Is this not the one that we had? Right.
It was the get scenarios by status method that we were working on.
That's right. That's right. I feel like we saw something like this.
We did. It was in get scenario.
Yep. Thank you. But like these, you could probably wrap these all in a promise all, and then they would.
Yeah, that's redundant. That's entirely like you're actually adding you're adding a micro task that is unnecessary by doing that.
Do you think it would not be any faster with that?
You wouldn't see any benefit. Each of these awaits. If you think of line if there were, let's say there were an empty line between 251 and 252, that would actually be the effective promise.all resolution line, having awaited the promise of all of these await functions, right? So if all of like putting these inside a promise.all means you now also have to resolve the microtask for the promise.all, which is just unnecessary. Right? This is like this is the syntactic form of the API calls that you're thinking of. Does that make sense?
I think so.
Like,
yeah, I saw this and
what I'm saying is once I hit that return statement, that's actually an implied promise.all. All promises have resolved once I hit that return statement on 252. So there's no benefit to then wrapping those things in a promise.all. Arguably there is a downside because you're adding a micro task that just isn't necessary.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was under the assumption, I guess, that each await awaits for the previous await to finish. So, and then promise.all, we get all of them at the same time and concurrent. Like if you looked at the network tab, it would be one request. Well, this is on the server, so it's a little different.
Yeah. I mean, the runtime semantics of two back-to-back await calls inside of a syntactic async function would be exactly the same as two promises resolving inside of a promise.all call. It's not going, you know what I'm saying? Like promise.all is not going to resolve until those the two promises in it resolve. The async function is not going to resolve until the two await calls within it are resolved. It's like I said, runtime semantics are identical. I do like the thing you just said, where I mean, you could, like, if you just bound all of these somehow to their own requests, but I mean that would take a bit of a architectural lift to change. But I mean, they are in fact their own endpoints, but you would have to do the assembly on the client either way.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
I think we're on the same page. So either way, it's going to be about the same. They're all executed at the same time. Yeah.
Or one after the other. All.
Cool. Where else should we poke around?
Do we actually want to go? You know, if we wanted to, we could take the take this get scenarios by status, the new one that we made, and call that get. We could call it anything, get light or get, and then we could add an endpoint for that, and we could have the client call that endpoint for that screen.
Yeah, so we could, you're saying, Chad, maybe make a new method that's this new one, and then try to call that from the client for that page we were looking at the slowdown on, the cohorts page. Yeah, we can give it a go. If you really want to get into the code, let's see.
Yeah, let's do it.
We might need some spirit guidance here. So we have get scenarios by status, and this works fine for just the little cards here. So we need to figure out, I kind of want to figure out what this is. It's
so you're on the cohorts view. You're on cohorts view. Why don't we look at dashboard? Because that's, yeah, there you go.
It's going to be the same sort of card right here.
Yep.
Cool.
Without loading in all of the other cohorts, it's, you know.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to find the component for this. So it's a cohort card. Okay. It's probably a recent scenarios component, and that's the one up there, recent cohorts. Let's take a look at the recent cohorts component and see what it's calling, which should be the thing we just looked at. Let's see here. Okay, so it's dispatching an action. What was that, Chad?
I said, yep, there it is.
Yep. And okay, so if we look at get scenarios by
We
status.
just need to come up with a good name for this.
Yeah. Where is this action? Action scenario. There we go.
Can we call it get zippy scenarios by status?
Sure.
I was really hoping that somebody would disagree.
Slim scenarios.
Oh, I like it. Slim scenarios.
All right, I found the action. Let's take a look, and we can make a new one.
I was gonna say get scenarios without associations, but
Wait. Get us scenarios without associations. Is that it?
yeah.
Oh, I love how clear and distinct that is. We're gonna go with that. Get scenarios without associations by status.
Whew. All right, let's just reword that. Get scenarios. What was it? Without associations.
Mm-hmm. By status.
By status. Okay. So we've got that. Let's take a look here. All right, so we're getting our state. We're getting our count of scenarios. This is checking if the user is logged in, it looks like. And if they are, scenarios equals state.scenarios filter. Okay, cool. So if this is just saying if we have our scenarios, it looks like return those and don't load them again.
Yep. So you want to go to line 151 and then make a new scenarios. Scenarios is a folder. So let's put something after that slash. Yeah.
Would this be like maybe what are we thinking?
Be scenario. Actually, I was getting distracted. This might be what you were talking about before, Rick. Are the scenarios that we fetch here being put into state?
Always.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that might be an issue. If we put these limited scenarios into state, it might still break something on another page.
Would this lead us to needing to make another item in state that's like the limited scenarios?
Oof.
I know. It starts.
No, I think my suggestion would be allow the limited view to be treated like it's a scenario. Because I mean, the only qualification it needs is like we'd have to go check in the store definitions. But what I would say is that for places that need the need the scenario with associations, you just request that and it would replace the thing in state.
Yeah. So it might not, or it might just be fetching them again when we go to that.
It might be fetching them again. I can't tell from looking at what we're looking at, but let's give it a try. This route is just to find in routes, so we could put anything we want there.
Yeah.
Association?
No underscore, Jimmy?
Love it.
Without associations.
I will pluralize. Okay, so scenarios without associations by status. And we're passing our status. And then, like we were still talking about, we're setting them in state. So now we've got that. And that's being exported. So we change nothing and add this here. It still won't work. We'll need to go to the server and define this.
So real quick, go into recent cohorts.
Sure.
Just replace get scenarios by status with your all occurrences in this file with your new thing.
Let's do that.
And then client stuff for this particular component. Then we know all client stuff is done.
That is great. Okay.
And now we go, now pop to the server. Oh wait, scroll down. Is that the only two occurrences on this page?
Yeah, it looks like
Like,
it.
want to make sure that it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, now you go to the server. Let's see.
This is where we were.
So scenarios, go to index. Go to index.
Next, there we go.
Under scenarios index. Yep. And then replace that, or not replace, add you could just copy line 31. Yep. With a new line that is, slash without underscore associations.
It was before status, Jim.
Thank you.
Yeah. There you go. You'll need a leading slash as well. There you go.
All right.
Marvelous. And then get scenarios by status. Do we have a server function that we replaced?
We don't have it yet.
We made it.
will.
Oh, okay. So
we're exporting this here. Let's just go look at that. So that was this one. So we want to make a new one of these endpoints.
Yep.
Sweet. Well, let's do that. What else I asked? Call the same thing probably, without associations by status.
Yep.
Yeah, now that we're seeing this code, I would be more inclined to actually add a parameter that might do this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This I agree. This is totally fine for our experiment.
Mm-hmm.
I'm with you. I would like in an actual implementation, this would iterate into something that was more like just a parameterized, like a get param type thing.
Be a lot less just repeating yourself for sure.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. It's just prettier.
But for the purpose of just proving out an idea, this is perfectly fine.
Perfectly fine. All right, sweet. So we've got our new endpoint here. We have to add it in one more place, which is we need to replace this with a new this. So if we copy this,
with a new one that doesn't have that doesn't have the loop in it.
Yeah, and we can probably keep that updated to ID, so it's getting because it's just used right here.
No. Right. Yes. Yep.
Cool. Without
Capital A.
Associations. Did I pluralize the last one? Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. All right. Now we've got this, and I think
you need to change it in the index.
Yeah, we need to add it here to these exports, I think. Good associations. By status. Cool. And then you were saying you tried in the index?
Sorry, not the index, the endpoints.
Yeah.
Right there on line 67.
Yeah. Scenarios. It's kind of interesting that IntelliSense isn't picking this up. But that should be it. Okay. Want to try and see if it works? See what we missed?
I think you need to restart the server.
Yeah. Let's see if we did a thing, made it faster. So this was this just the dashboard that we were looking at?
Yep. It's just the dashboard.
Cool.
I think it actually might affect both places if they both use the same component.
That looks like a
That looks like maybe not our request. Oh wait, no, there it is.
And what was the response?
It was, those are just all of our IDs. Yeah. And then this was the other one that was get. It's just
Cohorts.
Yeah, it's read. That's not the same thing. Are we expecting just IDs to come back?
No, can you scroll down in
No.
your browser over on the left-hand side?
Yeah.
See?
Oh,
so
yeah.
It's missing.
We're missing that. I think if you go to back to the code.
Mm-hmm.
Go to the definition of the get scenarios without association.
What is this?
Yep.
Cool. All right, let's define here.
Yeah, and then the actual implementation of it.
So this is what we had done, except we had just changed the ID. Are we expecting that?
Go to index real quick. Let's make sure that the actual literal string endpoint thing is pointing. Yeah, so you can get scenarios by status. You got to update it there. There you go. You have to import it or refer it. There you go.
That's it. That's it. Okay. Nice. Pretty that. Let's save this. Now let's see if we're getting an improvement in that timing. Let her restart. Where is our request? I think that's it.
So now it's 12 milliseconds instead of 12 seconds.
Heck yeah.
Now it is imperceptible by humans.
It's still, yeah.
But so that might be a function of that data. Oh man, I'm trying to think. What can't remember what is actually shown there.
You can see the scenarios in the store, just the IDs. That makes sense.
Oh yeah, okay.
Was that what was returned in the response?
Yeah, that doesn't really check out, does it? Because we returned a star, or we did a query for star.
It is just the ID, you're right?
Can you go back to the implementation?
Is that here we go.
Yeah, so it's there we go.
We're getting close.
Give it a try.
For some reason, I thought that I had seen you change that one to star.
For some reason, my brain was like, "Hey, this should be ID and not star," even though it should be a star. Hey,
it's because the other one we did want to actually change that to ID.
So now also click over to cohorts. I'm just curious if that view happens to also use that component. Okay, it doesn't.
So it may. I'm trying to think.
Oh yeah, all those requests.
Yeah, so now it's loading in
all of these.
Yep.
That's definitely an area where we could. Pagination, I think, would be a huge help for this, instead of just loading them all in like that.
Oh, I mean, you can. We only load and render the first. So if you didn't, the experience is much different if you don't have the developer console open. You don't actually know that those are loading in the background. They're all loading in async. You already had. See, watch. I mean. It's the first load sucks though. I'm not gonna lie, and I remember working on this and I couldn't figure out why this, because see that had to load in all of the runs this is the thing I was talking about before, right? This is each cohort. So this is like, you could think of this again as a fully formed cohort. So this is a place where like it would be better if this were just cohort metadata, right? But when I was developing the feature, I was like, okay, well, I have an endpoint to get all the cohorts, and and then when I get the first set of them, I can render them. But it doesn't matter, because the first set still is a huge amount of data, because it includes all of the information needed to render in the whole entire cohort page, basically. So once you click on one of these and go into a cohort, which means it's for all users, all participants involved in that cohort, all runs for all scenarios. That you see what I'm saying? So like one major area that needs attention is identifying narrower views of the data to build out these listings pages, because the delay you were seeing wasn't because we're loading 20 or 10 or whatever the hell number it is at a time in the background. It's the data objects for those are huge. See what I'm saying? And it's getting this first one in. See how it loaded, and now it's getting all of the rest of them that it would need to keep going, right?
Yeah.
It's getting these, and it's like, I need all of the information, because someone's going to click on this as soon as it is likely to click on one of these as soon as this page loads. So I need to have everything ready to render the cohort page, which
we never restored this method to return the full things. That's why.
Oh, is that why we're just seeing these little dots?
Yep.
Yeah. It's missing the info. That was just up here. Wasn't that this one?
Yep.
So if we go to get scenario.
Yeah.
See, it's missing where it's being spread in the return. We never put that back.
Yeah, there we go. That will fix that view.
So this is obviously not a change we're going to make, but this is one of the things that people like GraphQL for, because in your components you can say, just give me these two things that I need.
Yeah.
And the endpoint automatically changes.
Hey, we have 30 minutes. Let's implement GraphQL.
Yeah.
But I was thinking about that, Chad, working on this. I was like, this really highlights some of the benefits of using GraphQL and that sort of query tree like method, where you can be really picky on which fields you pull. And the resolvers, the resolver like convention with GraphQL.
I do want to make sure that before we go, I'd love to get your all's perspective on, what the scope of this work looks like, having had a chance to play around with it for a little while. Is this a week-long problem, a month-long problem, a day-long problem? Like, what's the, how well can you estimate what kinds of things it would take to fix this, or what the tiers of fixing it might look like?
Now that we've got a handle on it, I would say it's pretty straightforward in terms of for these two pages to just get only the data that they need in a limited object with a query parameter.
Yeah, I would agree. Kind of go through the app and just figure out where you're getting all of this data, where you really don't need it, and make those more succinct queries, define those, and hook them up on the client.
So just formalizing the change we've made here might just be a couple more hours of work doing it, and then it might be worth, if there's other hotspots, looking at those and doing the same thing. And so, devoting a couple days to it to really do a comprehensive change.
Yeah, a couple of days, and you should be able to make some impactful changes and updates if you have someone on board working on that stuff.
Yep. I agree with those assessments and also with your plan of action. I think that smart to get quick return on. High impact, low lift stuff.
High impact, low lift.
I mean, if you go back, is it because you didn't restart the server? We're still getting IDs.
Because I thought I had, and then I was surprised I wasn't seeing the data still. So let me try again. Yeah, let's just reload. I'm spoiled by having all my things restarted.
When it comes to the estimate too, I was curious whether we'd have to deal with a state problem.
Yeah, see, they're still not coming in.
And the response is just IDs?
The response is just IDs still.
Okay.
So
we messed something up.
We did. Conclusion. No.
Well,
it would be with the get scenarios by status.
Scenarios by status. Yeah, you know what? Let's look at my diffs. This might be better. So we changed, or we added get scenarios without association by status there. We added the new endpoint here, right?
Yep. So all looks good.
We changed this one to ID, which shouldn't change the behavior of that ultimately. Oh, that's
okay.
Oh, actually, hold on. Yeah, it does. It because you remember. Hold on a second. Can we go back and look at the?
Jimmy, you're on the right track there, with the return scenarios missing.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a look. That was in the DB scenarios. Where am I? Here we are.
Exactly, because you're over. No, not the plural one.
Down a little bit further, Jimmy.
Yep. It's right there. Down one. Next return statement that hits your eyes. There you go.
Yep. They're so similar. My eyes are just not used to those. Okay. Sweet.
So well, now go back. You'll need to restart again. And what I was curious about once this loads is whether then when we click through we run into state problems, or whether it refetches the.
Well, 1 second. Don't click through. You could try going to the scenarios tab and see what the scenarios tab does, given that it may assume that I can't remember. I honestly can't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But let's find out.
Okay.
I think the bug, if there is one, would be going fresh to the dashboard, getting the limited scenarios, and then going to one of the other.
Yeah, do a hard refresh.
Yeah.
Like full, Command Shift R or whatever. Yeah, there you go. Now cool. Now you've got that dashboard view. Now go to scenarios.
Let's go there.
Oh, not bad. You're local, so you just. Oh, this is great. You populated from upstream or something.
I pulled production. Yeah.
Beautiful. That might be illegal, Justin. But
we were
go ahead and hit it.
Hey, I consulted Justin.
Wait, what was illegal?
No.
That he pulled the production database locally. That means that there's now a copy of privileged data on his computer. That violates the MIT consent decree. You should do that you should just blow this away when we get off the call and redo the whole thing with staging, because I made all the data on staging and none of it's important. This has if you pulled production local, that means you actually have a copy of all of the facilitator and participant data, whether they hit I consent or not
But the consent is for research, not for tool development.
Right.
So as
Well,
long,
that's
so
what I
as
was,
long
that's what I was stumbling in to say, which is whether they hit consent or not doesn't cover this case.
I mean, as long as your drive is encrypted, you know, and requires a login and things like that.
We'll make sure
just,
to clean.
we just
this
call
up
this an anonymous
after,
mistake.
But we are live streaming right now, so
just delete it after. But no. I mean, what he did was fine. Like, we need to use that data to make the product work, and you know, as long as the data is maintained securely, it's whether it's maintained securely, you know, in the production database or in an encrypted local server for testing it. It's that in and of itself is fine.
Okay, Jimmy, can you click over to the cohorts
Sure.
tab now?
So we got something. Okay.
Yeah, so that, I think that probably is indicative of the state problem. It's not affecting the rendering of this page because it's, you know, I think it still worked.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it, as to Justin, to address your like estimating thing, like that's something that would need to be resolved.
Yep.
That we're populating state with partial objects, and we'll need to make sure it doesn't create errors when you go to use those objects on other pages.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think honestly that might be something that can be, you'll have to check again, resolved in the Redux store definitions, where they like, it just basically does like a filter. Like, do I have this? Are you telling me to replace all of this, or am I getting a new copy of all this? Just check in there, and it might be a fairly straightforward fix to have this say, you know, when you go to this view and it makes the request for that scenario data, it then doesn't treat it like it already has everything it needs. It just makes the request to get the whatever data it actually needs. Another path we should look at is if you go to dashboard, hard refresh for me, and then go into scenarios, and then I want to click into one.
Scenarios. Just click on
see what happens. Oh, sorry. Hit edit.
Thank you.
So, what was that? Scroll up.
Yeah, that was just a Google Drive content security.
No, there was one above there.
Yep,
Stop
there.
right there. Can't perform. Oh, this is just garbage with component will. Okay,
Yeah, this
that's
page
actually really
looks pretty
promising.
good.
Yeah, this is really
I'm not
promising.
seeing any super
You,
obvious
since
problems.
this is local, go ahead and like put the cursor in there and like put blah 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 whatever, lorem ipsum or some nonsense. Just like make
blah,
a
blah.
substantial change. Yeah, exactly, perfect. Now on the left hand, select slide 2.
Slide 2.
Yeah, now go back to slide 1. This is marvelous. It's actually, I think, this indicates to me that the plan is actually quite sound, and I don't think that you're going to run into too many issues.
It looks to me like it's hard. There was so much in the log, but I actually suspect that it did a full fetch of the scenario.
Yes.
When
Yeah.
we went to this.
Yep. And then replaced that scenario when it pulled up the full scenario to populate in the editor and replaced that object in the Redux store.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it would really just take a little bit more poking around and testing to make sure we didn't break anything else, So
and I'll make myself available for you, like if you just find yourself head scratching and you need to chat, I will do my best to be the most available. And of course, code review, I'm all yours for that. I will make time for you to do that.
awesome.
And how's the? I noticed
with
how's the test
within
coverage
your
in general?
timeline as well.
Yeah.
I would say it's pretty good. on a component by component basis. I know Eve made good use of it. Made use of running all the tests while they were working on the app as well. Nothing is ever as tested as I would like it to be, even when it is my own work. So I'll give you a modest answer. Everything can be tested better than it currently is.
Do you know if there is CI that runs like if I made a PR with this change that runs all those tests?
If I recall correctly, I do have CI set up for this. Yeah.
Nice.
So,
yeah.
Just double check.
So we have about 15 minutes left in the time we had set aside. Do we want to take a peek at another one of the issues that was mentioned?
Yeah. Does someone have pull the doc, or if we've got something happening?
I know there was something about the microphone indicator.
Oh yeah, I was curious about that. Maybe we can just try to see what that looks like, Justin, if you know how to kind of find one of these scenarios with the microphone piece. Maybe is there maybe a way to filter by scenarios that have recording?
I mean, it'd be even if you do find a scenario that has audio recording prompt in it, you'd still have to go through I would just go ahead and create a scenario.
Let's just try that. Okay.
Yep. It'll be much quicker because then you can have a single slide that has that feature, the feature you want to try right on it.
Cool. Aaron, do you want to describe the pain point there?
Yeah, sure. I'm trying to remember which one it was. If it was in terms of like user facing, like clearness of how to use the microphone. Was it the symbol, or was it in terms of the transcription?
From what I remember, it wasn't obvious to click the microphone to record.
Yes. Yeah. So I think right now it's just like in a circle with a button. And I know when I was using it with some of the pre-service teachers, they didn't understand like to click it to record and then click it to stop and then click it to re-record. So I think in terms of how it was presented was an issue.
Go to slides.
Gotcha. Slides. Thank you.
Yep. And then on the right-hand side, which audio input? Yep.
Gotcha.
Yeah, you don't have any other. You can skip that.
Okay, cool.
Say this is what it'll display over the like in the actual viewing area. So I would say like ask how are you doing today, or what's your favorite color, right? And then you'll see that displayed, and you'll have a prompt to have a button like to record the audio.
Cool.
Yep.
Okay, what's your favorite color? Do we need to select an agent?
If you want to select a confusion agent, go for it. You don't need to do that.
Just show.
Data header is just for your CSV file. If you're a researcher, facilitator, educator, or whatever, you have officially created a scenario. You're actually all done. Go to either hit either you could set the draft to, well, you'll be able to see it. We won't be able to see it. You're done. You could hit play or go to the dashboard and start it from the dashboard. Doesn't matter.
Oh, nice. Okay. Let's just hit play.
You are good. Yeah. So hit consent or don't. It doesn't matter. It's your data.
Okay. Cool.
All right. So stop. This is where Aaron should say things.
Things being said. Yeah. So in terms of actually recording it, I believe you have to hit the little microphone button. So Jimmy, could you try that and then sing something for us, or say your favorite color?
My favorite color is red.
And hit it again. Yeah.
So people expect it to stop recording when they stop talking.
Yeah, it was either that, or I had a lot of users hit the play button that was to the right of it and then get really frustrated, or hit the play button or not knowing how to start it, assuming it was a different button. So
Yeah. So
I mean, I don't know if a play button. Okay, go ahead.
I was just going to mention, like, in my head, I'm like, oh, a simple tooltip or something that pops up. That's just like, hey, click this to start and stop your recording. But go ahead.
Agreed. I mean, like the component, or we could go into the component right now and add, like, because it is already swapping out UI for the state change, you could just add a little bit more text there. So default state, right? It just says, click the microphone icon to begin recording. And then, like, when you click that, when that icon changes also, you just have it say, like, click the stop recording to stop recording. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any existing sort of components in this app to give sort of tips like that? No.
Or like a tooltip or something.
I don't think so. I know normally when I've done it, at least, like, I usually create a separate document or I prep the group that is about to do it beforehand. So I think one of the goals here is to, if anyone in the world was using this, that they ideally could figure it out relatively easily and participate in the scenario.
Nice. Well, that would be a really small lift to add you could even add a tooltip library if there wasn't something in the app or a component that does that.
It exists.
We could also play around with. Go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, I mean, even if it's not a tooltip, as in, like, I know what you mean, like kind of like a overlaid bubble thing. Even if it's not that, like, there's no reason to even not just have it displayed in the page, as like a piece of guidance information that is just on screen, not even in a tooltip.
Right, like click the
you
microphone.
could play around with it. You've got some options.
Recording.
Yeah, but just part of this, like, whole component. You're right. You could add just some helper text or sub-label, something like that.
So
exactly. Kind of
so
like
this is
how.
pretty cool. So it actually, once you did stop recording, it used audio transcription.
Oh, Chad, do you want to know how this? I would love to tell you. This is super cool. When you hit stop, it takes the audio that it's recorded as, like, basically, an MP3, sends it to Watson API over the wire. Watson then turns the audio into a transcript, asynchronously sends it back. So you could have continued. You could have hit, like, so if you had other slides on here, right, you didn't even have to wait for that transcript to be done. You could just continue along your merry way, and Watson would just be doing some work in the background, and it would come back and it would populate the database table with the actual text transcription, along with a link to your audio stored in AWS now, right? So you have both the audio file and the transcript stored with the response data. Now, you remember the part where you said, where it said, do you want to show the response from another prompt? Say you had another slide down the line, you could then display this response data in another slide down the line by choosing to embed a previously given response, and it would include that asynchronously received transcription from Watson. Even if it didn't have the transcription ready when you got to that slide, as soon as it was ready, the slide would update.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That is a really cool feature in the design. Yeah.
And we use it for
the thing
reflection. We might ask you a question 10 slides later, which is like, okay, this is what you said to that kid in that moment.
Yeah.
Having seen what happened next, do you still agree with what you did, or do you want to try it again?
And if you had sent it through that confusion analysis program, you could say, do you agree that you sounded confused because the machine thinks you sounded confused, or something like that? Or do you agree with, like, any one of these agents might have done some analysis, and you could then later reference the analysis it did on your thing by embedding your information. And it's a lot of interesting applications there.
So
Is there any
Mike in the
functionality
chat
in the
a
app
while
that
ago said that
is the asynchronous use of Watson.
To put industry push to estimate by sandwiches instead of days. So I think we're all in agreement that giving some indicator of how to use the microphone there is probably not even a full sandwich. It's probably a half a sandwich.
It's probably not a full sandwich at once, but I mean, one way to solve it might be to like whip up a few different AI approaches, wireframe approaches, UI approaches is what I meant to say. It could be a tooltip. It could be that actually we could like break up that middle thing into something which said recording studio, playback studio. That might give you an indication. There might be just you might be able to put a little rect pause words or icon underneath the microphone, and then maybe the word playback underneath the right part or something like that.
Mhm.
And we might test we might draw up a few of those things and then put them in front of some teachers and say,
Well,
hey,
the really out there thing would be to, and I believe that the web APIs for audio now allow you to do this, which is you could stream and detect when the person stopped talking automatically.
Oh yeah.
You don't think so, Rick?
We experimented with that. The problem is
Cool.
that people pause.
Mm-hmm.
You
That's
can't
what I was going to say. Yeah.
see, I just paused. If I have like a really long, some of these answers could be like 5 minutes long, and it's somebody it's being prompted to tell a story even. Maybe they stop to think about it while they're doing it. And now Watson will detect that and put it parenthetically, it'll be like pause right here. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And so we can see where pauses are. And that's actually important for some of these agent analyses that are being created, like, again, like that confusion agent or other agents that do, basically like language sentiment detection or so on and so forth. They'll use those pauses, and those pauses are actually important in like determining whether or not like maybe confidence in answer or something to that effect. So yeah, we can't key on pauses because pauses are actually important in the way people respond to these.
Cool.
Surprise, it's super hard.
I feel like that happens all the time with like Google Home or Siri, That
Yes.
sort of thing too, where
Oh my
you're
God.
like, oh no.
I'm the biggest Siri pauser ever, and she's always just like stops talking to me, and I was like, I haven't finished my thought. Come on.
Yeah.
But I get your intuition. Like, wouldn't it be cool to just automatically have this thing end when But sometimes you just have to defer to hoping the instructions are clear enough. But I mean, I guess if this the purpose of this exercise is to make the instructions clear, then well, be cool to see what you guys come up with.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Well, I'm going to say I think that we should start to wrap up for the day, if that's all right with all of you. We've got just a couple minutes to say thank you to everybody for watching, and thank you, Rick, Justin, Aaron, for joining us on the stream today. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us. Thanks, Rick, for coming out. And it's really fun to dig back into some of these issues. And I mean, I think the thing that I really appreciate about Rick's work too is just how much time he invested in really figuring out what it is what we were trying to accomplish in terms of teaching, in terms of research, so that, because ultimately the design choices that you make really do need to reflect, all the things that we want people to be able to do for learning.
Yeah, it's been great. Fun to jump through the code with y'all and check out the app and find a few ways to pretty easily make things a little bit more snappy.
So we have the in the notes for this stream, you can find a link to Teacher Moments. You can find a link, and from there you can find a link to GitHub and the code. So if you're a developer and you want to pitch in and help out with the code base as well, you can totally do that. It's all there for you.
Great.
Everyone,
thanks,
have a great
everybody.
weekend. Thank you so
much. All right, yeah. You all as well. Take care.
Yeah.